Hi, so today in this class we will study here about identity as a service. Now there are various services which are provided here by cloud computing. So this is one of them, identity as a service. So it is also referred as here IDaaS. Now, this identity as a service here is a cloud-based service that provides a set of identity and access management functions to target some systems on the customer premises or the cloud platform. That means it is here providing certain identity attributes and access management functions. So first of all, we will study here that why we require this kind of service like your identity as a service, and then we will see the various services features of this service here. For an example, there are employees in a company. So the employees in a particular company here require to log in into various systems to perform various tasks. They have various tasks here. So in order to fulfill those tasks, the employees they are required to log on to those systems here. Now, what happens there? The systems here may be based on local server or cloud based. So due to this, the employees have to face certain problems. Like first of all, the employee have to remember the different username and password combinations for accessing multiple servers. Now, there are different tasks may be located on different servers. So in order to access this servers, the employees there may require to remember the various combinations of username and passwords. So this is the first problem that employees might face here. Second one is that, for example, if an employee leaves the company, so it is required to ensure that the account has been disabled for that particular employee. So that just increases a workload on the IT staff. To combat these problems, a new technique was developed, a new technique is emerged, which is known as your identity as a service. So that means here this IDaaS, this identity as a service here offers the management of your identity as a digital entity. So this IDaaS here, what it offers, it basically offers management of the identity, which is nothing but just a piece of information. So it offers the management of the identity as a digital entity. So we can simply put it here in a way that if we have to solve these problems, that means the user should not have here different passwords for accessing the different servers here, which are that means the various systems which are here cloud based or your local server based. So the employees here should not face these kind of problems, like to remember all the usernames and the password here. So to solve these problems, we have here identity as a service. That means it will provide us with the platform where we can have like a single identity for different objects. That means one user will be identified on the basis of that particular information or that particular credentials to access the various systems of a particular organization here. So now we will define here that what does this identity here refers to, because we are saying here that identity as a service, that means this is provided here as a service. So what does identity here refer to? So identity basically refers to a set of attributes which is associated with something and makes it recognizable. That means it is set of a particular attribute which is associated within an object and making it different from another so that it can be identified here. So it is nothing, it is just it just refer here to a set of attribute which is here associated with something. Set of attributes associated with something, some object, and then making it recognizable there. So that means there are different objects. They can have the same attributes, but all of the objects will have different identities so that they can be differentiated from each other. So this unique identity, that means all of the objects are there allocated a different identity. So this unique identity is assigned through an identification attribute. So here we have several identity services which has been deployed. So the various identity services which are deployed here, like you're validating a website transaction. So that means we have different number of website transactions. So there can be a different number of set of transactions here sharing the same attribute, but they will have different identity. That means each of that transaction will have here a different identity. That means it will differentiate the various website transactions in a way that it is differentiating the transaction participants. It is differentiating the transaction clients here, etc. So that means all of this are doing the same thing, but they will be differentiated here because they are here assigned different identities here. So this is here. This service here like can be provided by your platform also. Your service as a software platform that can also provide this feature. So this is also a subscription based feature here, your identity as a service. So we are providing here different identities to the objects so that they can be differentiated from one another. So in this way, this this identity as a service here include many services like your directory services, your federated services. After that, registration services. After registration services, IDAS also includes authentication services. After authentication services, risk and event monitoring. Then a very important service, a very good feature here, which is offered by Identity as a Service, is your single sign-on services. SSO, single sign-on services. And it also offers identity and profile management services. So all these features and services here are included in your identity as a service: directory, federated, registration, authentication, risk and event monitoring, single sign-on services, and identity and profile management services. So we will discuss here one of the feature for your identity as a service, which is implemented here. To solve the problem of using different username and password combination for the different servers, what companies are using here? The companies here are using the single sign-on software. So we will discuss here the single sign-on, which is included here in your IDaaS. So as we studied previously that why this is required, identity as a service. So in an organization, the employees needs to perform various tasks. So that means they have to log into various systems there, or the various to access the various servers. They have to log into that. So to solve the problems for using the different combinations, what we're using here, or what the companies are providing here nowadays, is a single sign-on software here. So this single sign-on software here allows the user to log in only one time, and it itself manages the user's access to other system. So the single sign-on software here allows the user it allows the user to log in only one time, and it manages the user's access to the other system. SSO then is responsible for managing the user's access to other systems here. So this single sign-on, this SSO has only one authentication server which manages the multiple access to other system. It is comprised here of only one authentication server. So that is here responsible for managing the multiple access of the users to the other systems. So user, this is the scenario here for your single sign-on software. So that means first of all we will have here the user. We will have the user here. After that we have authentication server here. So this authentication server here is responsible for validating the user's access to the various multiple systems here. So now here we can have different number of systems, or we can say the servers, like here HR server, and then we can have like your intranet server here, then some another servers here. So this is here responsible for managing that multiple access of the users to various systems, like your HR server, internet server. Then you can have some payroll server here, or training server here. So how does this basically works? Now we will see here that how does your single sign-on system or single sign-on software here works. It means how with one identity it's managing the multiple access to the various systems here. Now, we said that we have here the user. Then we have authentication server, and let's say we have the intranet server here. So There are various steps here. So the very first which we have is like user logs into the authentication server using a username and a password. Now the first step is that the user is firstly logging here. So it is entering the password and the username. So here user name and the password. User here logs into the authentication server using a username and a password. Now after that, the authentication server will return the user's ticket. Now it has its information, that is the username and the password. Now it will respond back to the user by returning a ticket. So here is the ticket which is issued by the authentication server. Now after that, the user sends the ticket to the intranet server. So here third step is that the user sends this ticket here to the intranet server. Now what will happen in the fourth step? The intranet server here again will send the ticket to the authentication server here. And after that, here the authentication server will send the security credentials for that server to the intranet access. So after the internet server has forwarded the ticket to the authentication server, what will happen? The authentication server here sends the user security credentials for that server to the intranet server. So here the user's security credentials here are forwarded to this. So that means the user has only logged one time. After that, this authentication server here is responsible for managing the access. If the user is want to log into another system, so what will happen? It just have to send the ticket to that server, and after that, the server here is communicating with the authentication server to check the details here. So this is how the single sign-on software here works, that the users logs into the authentication server for only for the one times, and it is issuing the ticket. After that, this is himself responsible for managing his access if he want to access some another system. For example, if he wants to access the payroll server here, so it will have to send the ticket to that server, and then the security credentials will be exchanged here in the same manner. So if so this is how this single sign-on software works here. Now after that, what happens if an employee leaves the company? So it is just required to disable at the authentication server. That means this details are here just required to be disabled at the authentication server here. So it is reducing that workload on the IT staff also. That means when you are just disabling the user at authentication server, it in turn will ensure that the user has not any access to the system. That means you only need to ensure that these access security credentials are removed. After that, it will make sure that the user has not access to any of these systems here. So the single sign-on software here is an feature of your identity as a service, which is mainly used these days by the companies if the employees have to perform various tasks residing on the various server here. So this was here about the identity as a service in your cloud system. So this is all here for today's session. Thank you so much.